for financing, in some cases, like financing versus cash, you might not have a choice. It can be difficult to get financing in this business for certain things. And it really, again, it's so situational because do you have the cash to start and don't want to spend it? Do you have good credit? Do you have a relationship with the bank? Is there anything you can borrow off of to possibly get started? Can you get financed through a dealer or something like that for the equipment?
I'm Wendy Cross, but joining us, we have Clayton Roll, who is a owner of Rolling Ops out of Quincy, Illinois. Next up, Justin Elliott, owner of Greenhead Recycle and a fellow Wisconsinite with me. Hey, hey. And then we have Joe Maxey joining us from Florida, owner of Maxco Dumpsters. And without further ado, let's get this party started. And I'm going to turn it over to our gentlemen. And if you guys could each just give us a brief intro of yourselves. Clayton, let's start with you.
Yeah, so Clayton Roll. I own rolling operations, like she said. And well, I got a docket. Let's see, Wendy, when was it official? Probably about a little over a year now, right? Or close to it.
Yeah, started.
And yeah, I'm in no way an industry expert, but I can tell you from experience that I may have just gone a little too long without utilizing some sort of software system, and it was just a game changer for my business. So things have been good ever since. And once you have an employee and a couple trucks, it makes a huge difference to cut out a whole lot of back and forth between your employee and just making the process smoother. And we've definitely seen value in that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And Justin, my friend, share a little bit about yourself.
I'm Justin. I'm the owner of Greenhead Recycle in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. I did not start my business. I first kind of learned about the dumpster business in probably like 2015. And I come from a construction background, and I was renting dumpsters from the previous owner of Greenhead. I saw an opportunity there, and in 2020, we bought the business. And in 2020, we also started with Docket, and we've 5x'd the business since we bought it. And Docket's definitely been a big part of that.
Awesome. And Joe, tell us a little bit about you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Joe Maxey, Maxco Dumpsters out of Tampa, Florida. We got started in the business about 3 years ago. It was actually kind of beginning of 2001, maybe mid 2001. I came across a couple of YouTube channels, one of which was Justin's, which is kind of funny and surreal at the same time. I think within a month of me getting started, Clayton had launched his first video that was super successful. So I got to kind of learn from Clayton, getting the ball rolling there. So it's kind of interesting to see how that all comes back around a few years later. So I just appreciate being here. I've been a Docket user basically since the beginning. I started with 3 dump trailers and had Docket before the online ordering process. And now here we are with the premium web integration, and we're rocking and rolling.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing.
Smart man. So you never had to make a transition. So from the beginning, you kind of like started fresh.
Basically day one. Yeah.
That was smart.
For sure.
Good point. All right. So we have a bunch of questions here and topics we definitely want to cover. So let's get rolling. So I want each of you to share with the group here how you turned this idea of getting going with a successful dumpster business into fruition. What did we all do to get started? I know, Justin, you had just shared that you kind of came across it and started from scratch. So why don't you go first and elaborate just a little bit more on how you take your ideas when you're actually not starting from scratch?
So when I bought the business, I knew the owner pretty well, and I knew how he was managing and running the business. And I really liked the idea of the dumpster business. it wasn't popular like on YouTube or anything like that at the time. And I just saw the opportunity and I just more or less took it to the next level. Docket made us more professional. Our brand wasn't quite on point. Advertising was negligent at best. And a lot of practices that were being, used in the business before we bought it needed some help. And so more or less what I did is just went off experience running other businesses and grew the business with that knowledge. And now, everything, the dumpster business has changed a lot since then and will continue to change. And now it's just, trying to figure out the next way to, take the business to the next level. And Docket's helped a lot with that for us in the last year or so, getting into like the online booking and working on some of the SEO stuff and things like that. And we're just constantly trying to improve. When I first took over, it was very easy to grow the business. And now it's not as easy to grow the business. And so all these little tiny things that we're doing add up, and help us grow.
Good. Thanks for sharing. Joe, how about you? How did we take this idea and turn it into a business?
So I actually, I come from a predominantly sales background. I did automotive sales, service, management, basically my entire adult life. I actually started detailing cars. From the time when I left LA, I had a sales position there. And when I first came back, I decided I wanted to take a little break from sales and just kind of relax back into my life in Florida. So I got a job with a buddy of mine. His parents had bought into the College Hunks Hauling Junk franchise. So they did junk removal, and they put me in as a captain. So I got a real feel for hauling trash for people, going into people's homes, where to take stuff to the landfill, how to, prioritize and price out work. And then I got back into sales, did really well in automotive sales, really enjoyed my career there. And then during COVID, my bosses hit me with an ultimatum. I decided to go the other direction, and I decided I was going to get out of the industry. Basically, I just flipped open my laptop and I saw a video from Jesse Mims talking about renting out dump trailers. And immediately it was kind of one of those like, well, I'm good with a truck and trailer. I know how to take stuff to the dump. I know how to sell to people. I'm a little bit entrepreneurial and I've got a couple dollars in my pocket to kind of throw at something. So I didn't have I didn't plan for 5 years. This is what I'm going to do and take all the steps. I kind of just said, I'm going to jump out of the ship and see what happens if I can get the chute packed before I hit the bottom. And so I just took the leap of faith, bought one dump trailer, bought 2 and 3 dump trailers, worked the 3 for about a year and a half while I did a lot of research into like, what's the proper way to do this and how to figure out the weight for that and kind of what equipment I wanted to purchase. So I did get like a good year of the training wheels with the dump trailers, which was nice. And then I dove headfirst into roll-offs the beginning of last year. And now kind of here we are figuring out how to not break everything every single day and put it back together when we do. In a nutshell.
Perfect. Thank you. Clayton, how did we get rolling with rolling ups?
I see what you did there. Mine was kind of twofold. I was working from home before it was cool, before COVID was a thing. And I had just moved from St. Louis to Springfield, Missouri. So I was very interested in real estate. That was kind of my thing. I knew I wanted to grow this portfolio of things, primarily real estate, for the longest time. And so I actually left a duplex back in St. Louis and then purchased another one in Springfield. But one of the biggest things I ran across in Springfield, Missouri was dumpster prices were crazy. They were very expensive, and I had 2 basically houses I needed to flip. And I simultaneously, when I was working from home, I hated my job. It was a miserable existence for a long time. And I was always thinking to myself, there's got to be a way to cash flow something similar to what I do with rentals, but on a more consistent basis, because there used to be this like, there's like a 1% rule in rentals, in housing rentals. And there's other people who talk about, oh, I want to make X amount of dollars per door per month. And the number always just seems so low to me. And I'm just like, that's just, that's exhausting. That'll take forever to build, a nice nest egg. And so I was thinking. And while I was renting these dumpsters, I was like, forget this. I'm going to go get a dump trailer. This is stupid. I'm spending an enormous amount of money on this because dump fees aren't this expensive. And I came across a trailer setup and I dove in. And then I told myself, oh, I've got this rental. And then I was doing another one as well. So I'll just get two cans or I'll get one can and then I'll get two cans shortly later. And then maybe occasionally I'll rent it. And then occasionally turned into every day. And here we are.
All right, good deal. Okay, so let's get rolling here with, we know I want to start a dumpster business. I'm gonna need some equipment. I clearly need a truck, a trailer, a dumpster. What do I have to do? How would you tell somebody else how to get started in their dumpster roll-off business? As we continue to talk, we'll get into more of the marketing or the online bookings and all of that stuff, but basic right now, what do I need to get started?
I think it kind of depends on like what their knowledge and skill set is already. Obviously, you're going to have to figure out what it is that you're hauling, what's your focus in the market, where are you taking things, how much are you charging? I think a huge benefit for me with getting the dump trailers up front was things like roofing and, all these different projects that have different weights. They can be a little more sketchy if you're not knowing what you're doing and you jump straight into a roll-off package. If you go drop a 20-yard dumpster on a roof for your first time, they load it up with 50 plus squares, it's multiple layers, all of a sudden you have a mess on your hands. So there's a lot with equipment. There's a lot of research that can be done. There's no right or wrong way to do it necessarily. I think there are things that are easier to scale your business depending on what your future goal is. But I think just getting started and learning the kind of fundamentals of the business is more important than equipment, because equipment can be bought and sold. And you could start with one setup and change it 30 times between, your starting line and your finish line. And as long as you're taking care of stuff and not hurting yourself or other people on the road, I think just getting started and getting a good fundamental base is more important than any one specific brand or style necessarily.
Yeah, I think Joe made some really good points there, because at the end of the day, you will see a lot of noise about what is the best trailer setup, what is the best truck setup. Do I need to go hook lift right away instead of get a trailer? Do I need to do this? And they think the equipment is what's going to make them the money. And at the end of the day, it's not even close. I know people who run very, very beautiful trucks with very heavy duty setups, or the cream of the crop, what somebody would love to be in, but their business practice sucks. So at the end of the day, it's about, I try to educate a lot of people on this. It's about the money you keep, not about the money that you make. Because if you dive headfirst into this, you do all the research, you might go one direction and all of a sudden you're in really, really deep, but all the research you did was on the equipment and it wasn't on how to sell. It wasn't on how to market. And now you're in over your head on equipment costs, and you're not renting any dumpsters. So I think each one of us will probably have completely different opinions on which piece of equipment we would start with, but I don't think either of them are wrong.
Yeah, Justin, you bring up really good points, both of you, as far as not just thinking it's the equipment that's going to get you where you need to go, but the rest of, the full plan or the full knowledge of what your product is, what your brand is, what you're trying to sell. Justin, what about you? What are your thoughts on that as well?
I think to some degree it's about like what you can afford at first. Everybody wants to start with, the best stuff, but in reality, what we can afford to start with is what we have to start with. One thing that I would recommend is just starting with like standard rail. And I wouldn't recommend starting with dump trailers. And the reason for that, if you're serious about the business, you'll find that the dump trailers, and Joe can probably attest to this, how much more efficient he can be with his new setup versus dump trailers. And really, if you're talking about business practices and profit and stuff like that, efficiency is key in this game. So I think the standard rail, if you're going to start like with a trailer or something like that, allows you to move in to, higher end setups along, down the line without changing your bins. That would be my main recommendation. But like I said, it's about what you can afford in the beginning if you're just starting out. If you can afford a dump trailer and that's how you want to start, I think that's the best way for you.
For sure. I did a video on roll-off trailers versus dump trailers, which will kind of fine-tune the details if anyone's curious. But basically, the dump trailers just cost so much more money up front, and then significantly more money in maintenance. One thing that I did find a lot of value with starting with dump trailers is they lost a little bit of value, but the few $1,000s, let's say, I lost probably $3,000 on one and about $2,000 on the other. From owning them for a year and a half, almost 2 years, were also savings in a sense, because I did get to learn how to do those roofing loads, and like roofing tile is pretty big down here in Florida. And then on top of that, I've sold 2 of the 3 dump trailers. I keep one because occasionally I do get paver driveway clients that are adamant I do not want to roll off, even if you put it on boards, even if you stack up 10 boards high, I don't care. I just want a dump trailer. So there are uses to it. And then to dive into the rail conversation, if we kind of go one step further than ground level, I do think standard rail is the way to go if you can afford to do it up front. Because like Justin said, if you can start with anything and you can sell off stuff and rebuy stuff, but if you start off with standard rail, you do get the ability to go straight to a hook lift truck, weld a hook bar up to the front, and now all your cans are retrofitted to run either your cable or your hook style. And then you also have a slightly larger market for bins and trucks and stuff like that. So at the very, fundamental level, whatever you can get started to make money with is a fine piece of equipment to get started. But if your goal is to go from a 3 dumpster operation to a 30 or a 300 dumpster operation, getting the right thing to scale and grow is a good move. And I think, like Justin mentioned, I think standard rails probably the way to go in that regard. But you can have a little bit of time at the beginning to figure out the process too, because a lot of guys will jump in and it's like what you think today is the right move might be a totally different thing 1 year, 2 years, 3 years in the future. And don't get hung up on the minor details. Just go find a way to make clients and make happy clients, and then you can figure it out along the way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I still have dump trailers. There's many cases where a dump trailer is superior, but as far as efficiency for the business and stuff like that, it just doesn't work out.
For sure.
And I think another thing that people make a mistake is they just overfinance themselves before they have any business. And that's a big thing too, is just don't buy stuff that you don't necessarily need, and get in the business, learn the business, start making money, and then buy what you want.
Yeah, let's unpack that a little more. Clayton, did you want to share something
yeah,
about?
I get a lot of the YouTube's been an interesting thing where people call me expecting me to know things that just because I film myself, but like I'm in no way going to tell you how to run your business. But I get calls all the time and I think this is where I divert from everybody else here. And again, I'm not saying any way is right or wrong, but it is kind of one of those things. Once you get on a path, it is rather useful if you kind of stick to that path for a while. And I will not say that I will never, ever, ever, not go to a standard rail, because both of you probably are standard rail and I'm probably the odd man out right now. So I would make the argument it depends on the direction of your business, like Joe said, because at the end of the day, if you see yourself getting into, dual, triple axle trucks that are going to be 30, 40 yards, yeah, standard rail, that would probably make a lot of sense to probably start with a trailer that has a standard rail setup. So then those cans then transition over to, something like that in the future. I'll tell you at the end of the day, though, you might need to beef those cans up either way if you're going to be, putting them on bigger trucks. But outside of that, I would just flip the coin and say, okay, well, what if I wanted to, for example, I run a Max D setup. It's not standard rail, but those cans are everywhere. And I think you guys can attest that this industry has blown up and some people learn the hard way and their stuff is on fire sale everywhere. So can availability is a mute point anymore. A lot of people will say you have to go standard rail because it's the easiest can to get. And at the end of the day, it's like I can drive 50 miles and go find any type of can because people are just selling them. And outside of that, if I wanted to upgrade to a truck, a lot of guys, I think their pain point eventually is I need to hire somebody. You might have been really good at driving a trailer, but your employee list becomes a lot shorter finding somebody who can operate a trailer the same way you can and do it safely and well and understand weights. But if you put them in a truck, there's some learning curve that gets cut out. But at the end of the day, if you're shooting for that under CDL vibe, there's guys all over the country that build trucks to fit any can type. And I'd like people to just consider the fact that if you're going to start with any type of trailer setup and then transition to a truck, you have to justify the cost. Because just like the dump trailer conversation, when we're talking about maintenance, right? And I think you guys have talked to enough people to realize that a hook lift truck maintenance or a cable truck maintenance is going to be significantly more expensive than your trailer and your Dodge 2500 or 3500. Your tires are more expensive, transmission work, oil changes, everything is way higher. But at the end of the day, if you're running the same size can and charging the same amount of rent per can that you did when you had a trailer set up, when you transition to a truck that might cost, 100 to 150,000, what changed? You have to justify your purchases. And I think that's what we're all saying is there are so many different avenues you can go down, but you have to justify your purchases because otherwise you're just spending money and you're not really making it anymore. But I mean, every setup's different. Everybody has different opportunities. You just really have to set out your long time goal. Don't forget companies like 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I know they're not roll off companies, but they're running every one of their trucks has like a 19,500 GVWR, and that company's worth billions of dollars. So it's not how much the thing can carry or how efficient the truck might be. It's how you run your business. So that's just my only point on equipment. You can go any way you want, really. Just double down and run with it.
Yeah. So I do want to get to, financing, insurance, some of that stuff, but real quick, let's discuss for everyone, maintenance. Are you all maintaining everything yourselves? Or at some point, do you have to call in the experts, or how does that look? I'm assuming when you first get started, again, with costs and understanding, you're handling your own maintenance, right? So what does it look like?
I do personally, I do most of mine, but once you start getting into my axle broke or my transmission failed, it definitely comes down to a time management thing too. I think Joe and Justin could say that we all could probably figure out how to do all of our repairs and all of our maintenance, but at the end of the day, sometimes you need to run your business while somebody else is fixing it.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do all my repairs, but the ground level stuff I can definitely do some work. It really just depends on like what it is, like I do all of my, grease my Zerk fittings and make sure stuff is getting done properly, but I'm not going to go mount a 18-ply tire with a sledgehammer in my side yard when I could pay somebody $30 at a tire shop to go slap one on there, So you definitely divert to professionals for different things.
You're running 18 ply?
Yeah.
Dang, that's like a hockey puck down the road, I bet.
Yeah, they ain't light neither. Pulling one off my gooseneck is not fun, I can tell you that. But yeah, within reason, most of the basic level maintenance I do myself. I do have an auto shop. Actually works out pretty well because it's basically right outside my neighborhood. I know the owner. I'll take him to do, really, I could probably do my own oil changes, but I even have him do those just because it's more simple to just pull up and let him knock it out real quick. Oil and fuel filter changes. And then, yeah, I mean, for the most part, I don't have any real crazy maintenance because the hydraulic system is a closed system. So outside of like a line blew, you need to get that fixed. The hydraulics, I don't really have to touch until something actually fails. And then everything else is just making sure I don't have flat tires and making sure any metal to metal is getting greased all the time. So I don't have anything that's overheating and messing up. I did start my hub service on my trailer. It's been just over a year since I got it, so I'm working on that myself. That was a little bit of a learning curve, which is not fun in your driveway, but it can be done. But yeah, I mean, most trailer maintenance is relatively basic. If you're a little bit knowledgeable or willing to learn and have a handful of tools, most of the stuff you can do yourself with what you got in the shop.
Justin, what about you?
I do almost none of mine, and the reason for that is I want like pretty much everything in my business to be kind of like systematized, and I don't want to be a mechanic. I didn't sign up to be a mechanic. I don't enjoy it. I don't want to be a mechanic. And when my employee has an issue, and when say I have 5 employees, 10 employees, like at some point, even if I was capable of that, I won't be able to manage it. So we have places that we have accounts with, and if we have tire issues, that's where we go. If we have vehicle issues or bearing issues or something like that, we have places that we go. And more or less when we show up, because we do a lot of business with them, they drop what they're doing and help us out. And really the only reason, like I said, I'm not a mechanic and I don't enjoy doing mechanics, but I think more importantly is as we scale and grow our businesses, eventually you're not going to be able to do that. So you got to make sure that you have somebody in place to take over your mechanic job, eventually.
I think
What
that's
But I'll plug tires and do, things like that, fix tarps, install tarps, whatever.
Yeah.
That simple stuff. But
I think it's inevitable. Like that's the direction you're going to end up. We just might not necessarily be there. I enjoy doing those things, and I have a hard time letting those things go. And it's a
I can
problem
see,
I have, and I know it. And
yeah, I can see in your videos that you enjoy it. I don't,
yeah,
you
it's
know,
Yeah.
it's
but
one of
I'll
those
on a
things I like to know
Saturday,
it was done right.
I'll hop on a roof and roof a house, because I enjoy that, and you
Yeah.
wouldn't want to do that and vice versa.
No.
So
Not at all.
that's the main reason. But I
Yeah,
think
there is also a sense of size and scale too, though, because Justin, you're 30 plus dumpsters with multiple trailers and trucks, and
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
like for me, I
It's
have
to the point that that's not a possibility. You have to have those all outsourced.
for
Well,
sure.
another thing too is like warranties. If you have warranties on your vehicles, and liability, um,
Yep.
I wouldn't want to fix my stuff just for liability's sake,
Yeah.
because somebody's life is on the line if something fails
Yeah.
catastrophically, whether it's your employee or somebody else on the road.
Yeah.
And so
Good
things like
point.
that kind of just scare me because I'm not an expert
Yeah.
at,
Yeah,
at
that's a
that kind of
really
stuff.
really valid point. So what about the bins themselves? We were talking about the trucks and some of the equipment. What about the bins themselves and maintenance, or what does that look like? How, I'm starting out, I just have a couple of bins that I, started with. Explain to me what that's like.
I think Justin and I could talk about the maintenance, because once the winter rolls around, Joe gets the benefit of never having to worry about that. The salt is just so destructive to everything. Trucks in our area, and the bin. I mean, I've got I think my first 3 OG bins, all the rollers were locked up. And it became a thing that when we just had those, we just had to learn how to drop them differently, because you've just replaced the rollers and they'll lock up the next year. Yeah, grease everything. We have, at least I particularly have certain ways that I spray down my cans in the wintertime so stuff doesn't stick, because the worst thing that can happen to you is all of you pick up a dumpster, you're headed to the landfill, you go to dump it and nothing comes out. And then you got to sit there because you've got to get that can to the next person because it's the only one you have, and you have to rent it to the next person. You got to sit there at the landfill and beat everything out of that dumpster and chip it away with a shovel or crowbar, whatever it is, so that you can move on to the next thing. It's the most miserable thing. So there are things you got to take care of, and painting and, getting rid of rust after so long. The dumpsters have a lifespan. There's no doubt.
Yeah, for me, it's much more simplistic. I don't really have to deal with winter. So that is if we circle back to the dump trailer versus roll off, that is the huge blessing that roll offs give you, is outside of a few occasional broken Zerk fittings you might have to replace. You're basically just doing touch up paint and greasing all the spots that move. So grease your rollers, grease your doors, and then if something gets a nice scratch, make sure that you're not letting it rust through. Just clean that off, hit it with a little bit of paint, and then you're back to the races. So maintenance on the roll-off dumpsters, piece of cake. Trailer's a little bit more work, but it's well worth it when you consider the size and scale of, you can service 10, 20, 30 dumpsters with that one trailer versus the opposite.
I'm kind of excited that I learned a new term, Zerk fitting. I mean, that just seems like a fun thing.
That's
A Zerk fitting.
essentially, they drill a hole and then there's a little knob so you can put a grease gun up against it. And then it'll shoot the grease through the joint rather than it just, coming out the gun and sitting where it's sitting.
Perfect. A Zerk fitting.
Zerk is the noise it makes when it breaks off, and then you start cussing about it.
Now you are as mechanically knowledgeable as I am in the roll-off dumpster business.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna go start one. Okay, so real quick, let's pause. Let's see if there's any Q&A. Any of the attendees, feel free to start throwing some questions in there. I know John Thibodeau had asked just a little bit ago, and maybe we can touch on this real quick before we move on to some other topics. But he said,
Well, John,
what percentage of bookings are coming from online orders versus phone orders? And do you find this increasing year over year?
I first wanted to just say thank you, John. John sent me a hat. I believe this is the same John.
Yes,
and
it is.
He sent me a hat, and he said something about he wanted to get it to me before I went to the Vegas trade show. I loved it so much that I refused to wear it, and it's sitting. Well, oh no, I moved it, but it's sitting on one of my other desks because it is so cool, man. I really do appreciate that. But to answer the question, a lot of mine come online, and if they don't, and I get a phone call and I'm driving, I say, please book it online, because I also know that when they book it online, they pay ahead. So I don't have to worry about chasing down that dollar or whatever it is when I go to drop it off or my employee goes to drop it off. So I really try to train my customers. And after they call once or two times, you get the person who doesn't want to do it. They're just like, please just take it over the phone. Fine, I'll do it. But then you also, in my area, we have a heavy amount of night workers. So I get nurses and factory workers that will book online, which probably is what made Docket one of my most successful choices, was because I don't have to field those phone calls. I don't have to worry about any of that. They just book them online.
Good deal.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else? Otherwise, we'll keep moving on here. I want to touch, like I said, on financing and insurance, and then we have some other questions popping up. So let's go to a couple more questions yet, because I definitely want this worthwhile for the attendees. We have a question on, will lubricating cans help with frozen loads? I don't think this applies to Joe.
I have a little knowledge in this, but I don't lubricate any cans. The one thing that I have talked to a lot of people that do deal with frozen loads is when you start getting into lubrication of cans, you start getting into the A, is it making a mess in your customer's driveway? B, are they slipping on it? So it is
You have
just
to be careful.
Yeah, you're weighing the risk and reward of more liability or frozen loads. So I'll let you guys answer.
Justin, what do you do for yours?
I've tried everything. I've put a lot of thought into it, tried to find ice melt and stuff that's not corrosive. It doesn't exist.
No.
I've tried I don't want to, I know people use diesel and oil and stuff like that, but not really good for the environment. Could be slippery potentially. So literally the best thing I found to work is rock salt.
Yeah.
and that's bad. It's bad for your cans, but it does help. I haven't noticed over the last couple of years any like major rusting issues. The one thing that's nice about my cans is they're primed and painted on the inside completely.
Makes
I
a
see a
huge
lot of
difference.
other guys don't have that. So the salt in mine really doesn't get to the metal at this point. But I don't know any better way to prevent it other than that.
So yes, not the best for the environment, no doubt. But what I tend to do is I do one of two things. I will do a diesel, very light diesel mix with water. A lot of people are like, you can't mix diesel and water. No, you can't. But what you do is you let it separate, but then right before you spray it with a spray bottle, you shake it up. And it's a very small amount of diesel. Don't be one of those guys that fills it 90% diesel and then 10% water. If anything, it's kind of the opposite. Because the idea is just to hit it, you don't want to coat the whole can. A lot of guys will go like, I need to coat every inch of this can. Really, I just do a quick zigzag pattern. So not everything sticks, especially on the sides. A lot of stuff sticks to the bottom, but really the pain is when stuff really sticks to the side after like a freezing rain. Other than that, for last second things where like if we didn't coat the cans and it just came back, I keep like a really big can of Blaster in each truck, Blaster WD-40, the equivalent. And same thing, just a zigzag pattern on the wall, zigzag pattern on the floor. That way, when you walk into it, you're not going to absolutely just slip, fall, break your neck kind of things. Like you will visually see the zigzag pattern on the ground. It won't just look like, a nice shiny dumpster. So, and I do warn all my customers in the wintertime about it, but it, like everybody said, risk versus reward. It's worth it to me because I've had times where me or my driver have spent over an hour because the freezing rain is way worse than the snow for us. Snow usually falls right out, but that freezing rain,
Yeah,
you can spend a lot of time at the landfill wasting your day just trying to get your stuff out.
cool. All right, let's move on now. Financing and insurance. So I know you guys touched on this when we first started talking about kind of, not getting too far out over the skis with, financing or your equipment costs versus understanding, your business and your business plan. So let's share for the group, what are some of the best practices when it comes to financing? Should you be purchasing, with cash? Do you finance? Is it a combination of both? And then definitely we want to move into, insurance because it is a, safety is of the essence within this industry as well. So financing, who wants to start with that?
I think for financing, in some cases, like financing versus cash, you might not have a choice. It can be difficult to get financing in this business for certain things. And it really, again, it's so situational because do you have the cash to start and don't want to spend it? Do you have good credit? Do you have a relationship with the bank? Is there anything you can borrow off of to possibly get started? Can you get financed through a dealer or something like that for the equipment? Most of my stuff is financed through the bank. Like one of our trucks is financed through the dealer. But it can be difficult for some people, I think, to get financing.
Yeah, I think
Go
at
ahead,
the end
Joe.
of the day, there's no like right or wrong way to do it. I think it just boils down to pain tolerance, and then you kind of need to have a little bit of foresight and a little bit of wisdom with how you do things, because there's advantages and disadvantages to both. If you finance a lot of stuff, if you can get approved for a lot of stuff, you can grow and scale the business very quickly, which means that you could then, get those loans paid off, be a much larger company, making a lot more money. But at the same time, you could also buy a whole lot of stuff, have some kind of issue that you didn't know about beforehand, lose your backside on it from making mistakes with big zeros on the end. And then you could also, on the flip side, if you're paying everything in cash, you could grow slowly and not have, some of that extra capital at the end of the year. If you had a really, good, successful year, you could have had a better year had you financed stuff. I try to be as much cash pay as I can be, which has kept me smaller. And I think allowed me to learn a lot of lessons without having a lot of zeros on the end of it. But I do finance, like my truck, I financed 2 of the dump trailers I had financed. I sold those, so I paid those loans off. The roll-off equipment, I paid cash. So I do a little blend of both. I don't think that you're right or wrong for financing or cash paying, but I do think that, you know, not jumping in, just getting a $200,000 loan and saying, hey, I'm going to be a dumpster business. I don't know that that's a great way to do it. I think that a little bit of baby steps might be appropriate, but if you're super knowledgeable, well connected, you're, you know, quick on your feet, you got a good team around you that can guide you through not making some of those mistakes. There's plenty of value to be had from using other people's money and, you know, keeping yourself a little more shielded.
So I personally am Dave Ramsey's like I hate Dave Ramsey. So I'm gonna have like a completely different opinion than a lot. I love to finance things, use other people's money, but you have to be creative, and that's the big word. In real estate, I finance a lot of stuff. And it always just comes down to that foresight, like they said. It's like you have to make sure more money's coming in than what you owe. I mean, significantly more. But at the same token, when I got started, I'm with Joe. I would not go out and go to a bank and be like, I need 200 grand to start this business. I think it's way better to start very cash heavy on the front end or sort of cash heavy on the front end. That way you have something to prove. You have testing ground, and then you can go to a bank and be like, this is what I cash flowed this year by financing all of this myself. I need to double down on the business. Here's what I need. That is a lot easier conversation to have with your bank than I've never done this before. I don't know anything about it. I need 200 grand. Outside of that, when I first got started, I did one of the riskiest things, and I bought my first trailer with a credit card. And I do this every year, actually. I buy something with a credit card every year because you can get yourself, if you have decent credit, a 0% interest credit card with a pretty decent size limit. I did that for my first trailer, and then I had 18 months. It was 18 or 21 months because it changes every year what the allowed is. That's 0% APR for 18 months. So you have to just pay the minimum. It will affect your credit a little bit if you're only paying the minimum. So keep that in mind. You have to have a kind of some foresight, but you could get into the business in very creative ways and be safe. So it gives you 18 months to pay it off. I paid it off in like 6, I think, after I bought my first trailer and dumpster. And then I turned around and bought like 2 or 3 more with the same credit card. And then I did it again. The 2 years later, I needed a backup truck. Did the same thing. I bought a backup truck with a credit card. So, and then I had 21 months to pay it off. So there's crazy ways you can like kind of get into this business. Not what I'm saying is what you should do or smart in any way, obviously. But it's an option. Otherwise, if you've got the cash to start, go for it.
Cool. All right. Thank you. And I know we could probably go on for days here with this webinar, and it could be the longest webinar ever with tons of phenomenal information. What I want to do is I'm actually just going to call on Carson to help us out and pull up a slide for all the attendees, because we are doing a special little bonus giveaway here for anyone who has attended the webinar sponsored here by those of us at Docket. There's a QR code on the screen. Go ahead and scan that. And if you schedule a Docket if you schedule a demo of Docket with us before July 15th, we will be shipping out a YETI 2040-24 cooler your way. So please scan that right now. You can get a ton of questions answered during that demo. All of our panelists are on Docket and, have sung our praises, so which is awesome. But I just wanted to make sure we get that out there for you guys. Scan that QR code. But I want to keep rolling with some more questions. I'll leave that screen up just a little bit here, but we had some other questions initially kind of around the marketing piece. Tell us a little bit more about building your business. Marketing is key. What are you doing to get that brand, that awareness, that repeat business, that new business out there within this industry? Justin, how about you?
I think For us now, it's kind of slow. We have a good website through Docket. We have a a pretty good brand in my opinion. Our dumpsters are everywhere. People are seeing them. We have multiple trucks every day on the highway that are flashing the brand and get a lot of eyeballs. There are so many free things online that you can just get your business registered in and just have a listing online. Starting with stuff like that, Google My Business is so important for your business. And then, social medias and just trying to get your name out there for free in any way that you possibly can to start. And all these things are going to take a little bit of time to work, and every market's going to be a little bit different. But once you kind of get all those things in line, then you're going to start looking into more paid marketing and things like that, paying for people to optimize your website, SEO, and things like that. Otherwise, Google ads. I haven't had good luck with Facebook ads, but Google ads work pretty good. And then there are other listings that you can pay for to get dumpster leads and things like that.
All right. Who
Yeah,
else?
I'll chime in a lot with that too. So my approach has been a little bit on the slow and steady over the years. We've had 3 kids in the last 4 years, so I don't get a lot of like go out and shake hands and kiss babies type of time over since we started the business. So I put a lot of energy into building the good looking clean website, getting the Google My Business page looking good, just having the brand stand on its own. But one thing I've done a lot differently this year is now that the kids are getting older and I'm a little more less attached, I can get out into the community a little better. People like you and people like to see other people that they like succeed. So I think there's nothing more valuable than just getting in front of people and connecting with other business owners, trying to be active in the community. And one thing I've done a lot lately with my social media approach is I've tried to put myself into a lot more content, which is a double-edged sword because you want the brand to stand alone on its own. You want, if Joe was pulled out of the picture, you want people to still be booking dumpsters from Maxco. But I do think that having yourself well connected to the brand at the same time is a very great way to enhance your overall marketing image. And then I just do as much as I possibly can to get myself in front of as many people for free as humanly possible. I do almost no paid advertising, and I haven't for a year or so. I've dabbled a little bit, like there's months where I'll do a lot of Google ads. There's months where I'll do Facebook ads. There's months where I'll pay for, like the signs for the telephone pole, stuff like that. But really just getting out and in front of people and trying to make as many connections in other industries that could use you, and then making sure that you're doing a really good job of taking care of those people. It is not the immediate, like pump a bunch of money into the business approach. It is a long, steady pace, but year over year, I've seen a lot of growth from it, and it's been very rewarding to kind of see how all that comes together over time.
Good. There's actually a question, of what we've covered, and I want all of you to kind of help with this particular question. Someone had asked, what would you suggest to a company who has already started but is struggling because of that debt you were talking about? What kind of advice can you guys offer? Because I think that is a key question for many in the industry, whether it has to do with the financing, with the marketing, how would you help this person out?
You got to spend money to make money. If you have all that equipment and that debt that you have to service, you have to make a certain amount of revenue to service that debt and become profitable. And as hard as it might sound, you need to spend more money on marketing, and you need to make sure that that marketing is paying you back. So for every $100 of marketing that you might spend, if you're getting $400 back or something along those lines, you're going to increase revenue, and by increasing revenue, you increase profits, and by increasing profits, you make those payments a lot easier. I think a lot of people get stuck in that spot and they're struggling. And honestly, the way out in a lot of cases is by spending more money. I know that sounds crazy, but that's true in a lot of cases. But it's hard to do as a business owner.
Yeah, I think a big thing too is you get a lot of people who focus, again, like we talked about, on what type of equipment to use, and they invest so much in that, like they think that is going to be. And I don't know if that's the case for this person. I don't know what their debt position is and how much they're making or how much business they're getting. But it comes down to, it's like, do you have really good equipment, but your processes suck? I mean, do you have a Google My Business? Do you have Google Ads? Have you tried that? Are you posting on social every day or nearly every day to try to market yourself? It is kind of one of those things where you're in no position to do anything except for double down or scale down your equipment. So you double down the marketing and rent more dumpsters. And this is a very loaded question because we don't have all the context here. But you kind of get what I'm saying. It's pretty much exactly what Justin said. You just have to double down on the things, the processes that set you apart. Because I think the main reason this industry changed so much is because it was done the same way for 50 something years. We are what I would call, like, we're not big, but collectively we are disrupting the industry, all of us. Because at the end of the day, we are taking little pieces of that pie from the big, 3 or 4 dumpster companies. And one of the biggest reasons we're able to do it is because we go the extra mile for the customer. It's easier to book a dumpster online. It doesn't seem like we're breaking every customer with $900,000, $1,200 dumpsters. Like, we have one of the better prices typically. And we answer the phone and we're nice. I mean, that goes a really long way in this industry, as a lot of you have seen, because they have options now. They don't have to call that angry person at, insert big dumpster company name, because they were the only option. So you just have to stand out.
Right, but that takes time though too, right, Clayton? So if you're just starting and you don't have those customers that know and trust you and stuff like that, you have to find those customers one way or another, and that's where it's important. Um, if you have $200,000 worth of debt and stuff, the dumpster business is a game of scale to some degree, and you have to rent so many dumpsters to be able to pay for that. Now, if you are providing good service and you're doing all those things, it's just going to take time. But when debt's breathing down your neck, time's not on your side. So you got to do something quick to try to help that out. And if you're serious about the business, you got to double down.
There is a very large element of risk. That's all there is to it. I mean,
for sure, any business.
Any business. A lot of people, and I know it. YouTubers, we do our best to present the fact that we like to do this. I mean, for me personally, it's just a vlog of what I do. But some people might watch it from the outside and be like, "Wow, that's such a simple concept. You buy a trailer or you buy dumpsters and you rent them out." At the end of the day, you have to have good processes in place and a good head on your shoulders, or you can find yourself in a really tight spot where you have to make some really tough decisions. And that's even if things are going well. I promise you, whatever problems you have in the first 6 months of owning this business, you will laugh at 2 years later, because those problems were this big compared to the stuff you're dealing with now. I mean, it's comical. If I look back at myself 2 years ago, I'd punch myself in the nose and tell myself to grow up. Like, it only gets harder. You just learn to deal with it more.
Through that, what type of marketing do you feel works best? I know we've, talked quite a bit about it. Is it the Google My Business? It's your SEO, it's your social media presence. It's all of it?
It's kind of a lame answer, but yeah, I think it's all of it.
Yeah.
I think it's doing everything, at the very least a little bit, every single, day or week or month that you can. And like Google, I think it's pretty agreeable. I don't know if they'd agree or not, but Google Ads is kind of the king of, like, put in $1 and get 2 back out when it comes to actual paid advertising. But at the end of the day, if you're not, putting your brand in front of people, you're not posting on social media, you're not having cans in driveways that have your name and brand on them that people are seeing, if you're not getting out in the community, if you're not doing all of those things, you're either going to just have an infinite amount of money suck going out into things like Google Ads, and then eventually you'll just get tired of it and probably close up shop, because the Google machine, it never stops wanting to be hungry. It's always going to
Right.
suck that money out of you.
Yeah,
But
no,
all the things.
nobody says Yahoo it. That's just my first piece of
Yeah.
advice. When you need something, you Google it. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to be on Google. I will mostly agree with Joe on that. I actually have had my Google ads turned off for over a year. I am currently reactivating them, but the only reason is because I use Google ads for so long. And I do believe it is a very valuable thing, especially when you first get started. But as your brand becomes more recognizable and as you have Google My Business to piggyback off that, when you have 200 5-star reviews and you're the number one thing that pops up, you're just paying for Google ads at that point to either be number one and number two, or you use Google ads to target new markets. So if you're like, okay, I've got a really good clinch on this 20 miles that show up when somebody says, dumpster rentals near me, but I'm willing to branch out 40 miles and charge these people more. Use your Google ads to target those things. Branch into other places where there's not a lot of dumpsters being bought. I think another thing people get really caught in is when they make a Facebook page. Facebook ads, I think we will all agree right here, not worth it. How many Facebook ads do you guys see from other towns that aren't anywhere near you guys for dumpsters? I see them all the time, and then I'll message the guy, "Hey man, I'm seeing this 300 miles away. Something's not right," and they'll have all the settings correct, and they always get screwed. But outside of that, your Facebook page, I think Joe said it really well earlier, is like people want to see you succeed. But not only that, if they're good acquaintances, they want to be part of your brand. So over time, the best way I have found to use Facebook is not to post deals and opportunities and, oh, here's the weekend discount. I actually hate that type of marketing. I actually use it as more of a storytelling space of, hey, this is what we did today. Hey, this is what we're about to do now. And all of a sudden it starts to create opportunities. Somebody's like, oh, you demoed a garage and you put it in a dumpster, like you do that. It's like, okay, now all of a sudden we have 2 or 3 jobs lined up later. So you're selling without selling. And I think that's super important in this industry, is to sell without selling. Don't cram it down everybody's throat, and brand your dumpsters. If you guys are trying to run under the radar and not have your logo on your dumpster, you are missing out on so much money. It's insane. You need a recognizable brand. Each one of the things I just mentioned are different. Google is for when somebody needs you right now. They're going to Google. That is going to be your best dollar spent, because, dumpster and rentals near me, that person's about to buy. Branding your dumpster is brand recognition. They see it, they remember it, they see it again, see it again, they see it again. Oh, I need a dumpster. I'll go with that guy. I recognize his cans. And then Facebook is just that ongoing marketing exposure and connecting with your audience. So each thing has its own thing. So like Joe said, every week, every day, you should be doing a little bit of something.
With
Yeah, I think
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say with the Facebook ads specifically. So when you're posting stuff on like your Facebook business page, you're connecting to your immediate circle of people and maybe their immediate circle of people. When it comes to Facebook ads, I don't use it as trying to sell a dumpster as much as trying to put my brand in front of people that maybe one day will use a dumpster. And you're now getting the opportunity to target people that are in your community, but not necessarily in your circle of people inside your community. So you're just kind of, it's very similar to putting up one of those telephone pole signs. It's just another way of putting brand recognition out into the market you might be servicing. And I don't, whenever I do Facebook ads, which I'm not doing any right now, I don't put hardly any money into it. It might be $5 a day. And that's just so that, 2,000 extra people a day for 1 millisecond while they're scrolling, see Maxco green dumpster raccoon. And then those, pieces of information are hopefully stored in the subconscious for the day that they do need to use a dumpster. They might just circle back and go, oh yeah, I remember seeing that brand that, obviously they're trustworthy if they're still here. And I saw them 6 months ago.
And I think you guys basically said too, but I think like when it comes to advertising your business and stuff, you really need to cast a wide net, because some of these things are going to work better for other people in certain areas than others. But by casting a wide net of free and paid stuff, you're really like all of these paid ads, you're going to get some sort of analytics back, and you'll be able to analyze those and see what's working, how it's paying off, and just start small, cast that net out there, find what works, and double down on it, more or less. The one thing that's really nice about like Google ads and Facebook ads is you can turn them on and off like every day, you know, weekly, whatever. So when you're busy, turn them off, and when you're slow, turn them on. Um, that's kind of what we do. Once you get to a certain scale,
Spend money to make money. Like you said, spend
yeah,
money to make
yeah.
money.
Once you get to a certain scale, like you're always going to be advertising, like you're always going to be pouring money into advertising, because you're almost never going to have enough repeat customers to continue to maximize your potential.
Yeah.
But when you're small and when you're learning, like learning these things, what works for you and what works in your market, and the best return for your money is really important, because then when you really need it, you know where to go and you know what to do.
Well, and I think, thank you for sharing all of that. We've spent a good portion of time here talking about the marketing, the importance of marketing, but let's talk about our pricing. So we've had some questions about, how do I make more money? How do I double down? What am I going to be doing? Without getting into your specifics, what is, we actually had a question. How do you calculate the price that you need, for your dumpster? What is something you could share with the group? Again, you do not have to get into any of your own personal information by any means, but what's best practice for knowing how to price yourself so that you are making the money you need to make?
What do you want to
I
make?
think
Yeah.
How much money you want to make? I mean, that's really what it's kind of a really crappy way to say it, but I mean, all of us are going to have different answers. We have different expenses. So at the end of the day, like, what are you okay with? What are you surviving off of? What are you thriving on? There are guys that are, I'll just say it, they're getting away with murder out there, but they sell them. They sell them, and some dudes are making incredible returns off their dumpster, where one of us might see, I don't know, 250 a can. Other guys are seeing 400, but maybe their expenses are way higher. Maybe they're running 30-yard trucks. We're running 14-yard trailers. Like that is such a loaded question. I really wish there was a straight up formula.
there's also a lot of variance across where you live. So to give you a real world example, here I'm North Tampa, I'm not quite Tampa. Here, everything I dump is by the ton. I have a few places that charge minimums, so I might have to clear $50, but nothing astronomical. I know some places are 2-ton minimums, so you might be like, no matter what, if you drive in there with a can, you're spending $200+ to dispose of it. And then I also have Brock, who's an hour north of me, and every dump he goes to is by the yard. So he can say, oh, you have a roof that needs done. I drop my 15-yard can. It's this price, because when he shows up with that 15-yard can, his dump fee is already figured. That's the price. It's not going to go up, go down. For me, I had I won't go into a specific number, but I had a very heavy can the other day, and for him, it would have been $200 to dump. For me, it was $450 to dump. So it was the same size can, would have been the same, like capacity wise, but I was double what he would normally be paying to get rid of that can.
Was there a boat? Was there a boat in that can, Joe?
No, actually the boat I don't imagine is going to be very heavy. I haven't dumped it yet. I'm using it to clean up some weekend stuff at the house, but yeah, no, it was predominantly roofing tile, but it was mixed in with stuff, so I couldn't dump it at the concrete aggregate cellar, which normally that's what I would do, but in that case, logistically, it just made more sense for the roofer to combine everything. But yeah, so you need to figure out what you're going to actually be spending. What does it cost you to get there, get back? How much is diesel? What's your maintenance? How much do you want to make? And then realize when you decide how much you want to make, you probably need to maybe double it, but at least not, or at least add a little bit more to it, because there's going to be unexpected expenses along the way.
While
When it comes
balancing that with being competitive locally.
For sure. Yeah, when it comes to how I do my pricing, I've changed pricing models 100 times over the last 3 years. I'm settling into one now that I really like, where I allow people to book a dumpster with 0 tonnage, 1 ton, 2 ton, 3 ton, 4 ton. So I have prepaid disposal built into my, and this is actually to tie it in with the Docket online ordering process. This is going to change based on how you're doing your orders as well, because if you're doing 100% of everything over the phone, it's very important that everything is simple, because if you start getting into overcomplicated conversations over the phone, you're going to lose that customer every time, because they're going to get flustered. It's going to seem like you're being salesy. But what I now do, because I have the Docket Premium, is I essentially have 3 stores built into my shopping cart process, to where you pick your dumpster, you enter your contact information, and then you could select no prepaid tonnage, and then I bill you at 7 cents per pound at the end. So if, let's say, you want a 20-yard dumpster, but you're going to put insulation inside of it, and it's going to be a 1/4 ton, right? I have an option for you where you get that larger size at a low price, and I don't have to charge you what the other guy is, where he, with his 20-yard can, he gives you 2 tons, but you're paying $200 more to do it. So I allow you to select the can, and then I allow you to prepay for 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 tons. If you prepay for tonnage, it's heavily discounted. So I actually even lose a couple dollars depending on how much tonnage you prepay and what the material is. But now I don't have to go chasing that money at the end. Everything is paid for up front. If you end up going over a little bit, I still bill that 7 cents, which is profitable for me, because I pay about 4 cents, maybe even 3 cents, depending on the material type, per pound. And all that is a seamless integration through my shopping cart experience. So that's something that 10, 20 years ago, before the programs kind of existed, wouldn't have necessarily been possible. But if you utilize the tools and the technology to kind of fine tune your process, I give you the most customizable dumpster experience you're going to find in the area, which gives me an advantage in that regard, which is
Nice.
pretty cool.
Nice. Justin, before you share anything, real quick, because we've gone past our hour here, not that that's a big deal, but I just wanted to share, for all the participants that are still on, and most of you are, Carson did throw in the chat. So at the bottom of the screen, the chat button, you can click on that. There's the link again to make sure you get yourself signed up for a Docket demo if you haven't done one with us previously, and get that YETI 24 roadie cooler sent to you. But also she put the link to each of the guys' YouTube channels, so that you can, if you haven't stumbled across them before, you now can follow them. Obviously reach out to them with any questions, because I just offered that up for the world to contact you with questions. But always watch your YouTube channels to stay in touch with what's happening within the industry, because I know you guys are always sharing some great stuff. But with that said, we'll wrap this up shortly. But Justin, did you have anything you wanted to share around kind of this pricing information,
Yeah.
pricing structure? Please.
Yeah, I think the pricing is actually a lot easier than most people think. The big thing about it is you got to know your numbers. Docket can help with that, or any, person with some math skills can figure it out. You got to know your numbers and your costs. If you're renting a dumpster and you're including tonnage and then charging for extra tonnage, you know what you're going to pay for every single dumpster at the dump. And then you can just kind of work backwards from there, roughly how much fuel it's going to cost, roughly how much labor it's going to cost. Then you can add in some wear and tear and marketing and things like that. And then just figure out what kind of profit margin you want. If you're looking for a 30% profit margin, you got to figure your price that way. 50%, figure it that way. I think what a lot of people do, and this goes back to like financing or cash, is people set their prices really low because they spent $200,000 of their cash buying equipment, and they're not figuring in that cost. They're writing that completely off. you also like, so moral of that story is if you have all your stuff paid for in cash, there's still a cost to that goes into each dumpster. So you want to look at your pricing model as if you did have a loan on that $200,000 cash or whatever. And then just kind of work it from there, and then understand that scale in this business will increase profit margins every time. So when you're starting out, your profit margins might be lower or not exactly what you want, but as you scale those, you'll see those profit margins rise.
Perfect. Well, I think on that note, we should probably start wrapping this up. Like I said, we could go on all afternoon, but everybody does have day jobs that they probably want to get back to. And I have taken up enough of your guys' time, but cannot thank you enough. This was awesome. We might want to do another one because I think we can just keep carving out more and more content here. And there are still some questions that we didn't get to in the chat. We are going to, make sure that we have captured those and circle back with the folks who did ask them. I know Clayton's typing an answer right now as it relates to the insurance question. Again, follow these guys on YouTube. They're always sharing a ton of info. Get that demo with Docket and learn even more from us and the rest of, the impact within the industry. But again, I cannot thank you guys enough for taking the time out of your busy day to sit down with us, cover all of this information. I know we had a great crowd attending. Any famous last words from any of you before we wrap this up? What is something you wish you had known prior to what you know now?
You guys start. I gotta sit on that.
Yeah, Joe goes, oof. Or what's one big piece of advice if you had to tell somebody one thing, what is it?
It's
It's
your
going to be
business.
hard. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to be hard.
Gonna
No
be
matter
hard?
what you think, it's going to be hard. Yeah, it's going to be hard. It's not easy.
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, no matter what piece of equipment you started, no matter what your market is, the people that are willing to just put it out all on the line and hustle, and no matter what happens, they're going to find a solution to the problem. They're going to be the ones that win, whether they finance, they paid cash, they bought the proprietary rail or the standard rail, the hook truck or the cable. I think all of that is a piece of the puzzle, but every single person in every single market is competing with other people in the exact same position in the exact same market, and just hustle and determination are going to be what pushes you forward and allows you to succeed. That's as simple as I can put it.
All right, hustle.
At the end of the day, it's your business, and make sure you keep it that way. A lot of your customers will like to control your situation and tell you what they need and what you need to do for them. Be wary of breaking away from your own rules. I think each one of us have probably made that mistake before where we broke away from our rules, dropped a dumpster without payment, let somebody take a 20-yard dumpster for roofing, and we might have told ourselves, and because they promise you it's only 30 yards, but they've got a little bit of, or 30 square, but they've got a little bit of wood they want to throw in, and you roll up and it's 90 square. Like, it's your business, it's your rules. The customer has options. The reason they're begging you is because they can't get the other one. So just, it's okay. It is okay to say no to a customer every once in a while, because at the end of the day, don't let one customer jeopardize your whole business. You could literally mess your business up in one bad move. That's all there's to it.
Yeah, and to go off of that, never let a customer dictate your price, because once you do it once, then it's at the next guy and the next guy and the next guy. Oh, never ever let a customer dictate your price.